Hey everybody, welcome to another game and party video. My name is Doug Deneen, and I'm going to be showing you how to set up and play the new Terraforming Mars expansion, Turmoil. Setup for Turmoil takes place after step 2 of base game setup. Step 1 is placing your player markers on 20. Step 2 is placing your token on generation 1 to keep track, and after that we then set up Turmoil. Now Turmoil does have two boards. We have our delegate board up here and our global event deck board down in here. To start, first thing you do is you get all of your neutral delegates, the gray ones, place them all up in the neutral reserve, and one of them slides down and becomes chairman. You then take this new milestone, which is a 26 over the 35 for Terraformer, makes it easier to attain that Terraformer milestone. And this really is pretty much the only difference between playing Turmoil as a solo or multiplayer game, is just that one milestone right there. This is also only changed on the base game map, the Tharsis, I believe it's called, map. We then take our global event deck, and we're going to place it on the distant global event space here. We're going to flip over the top card, and anytime you reveal a card, you place a neutral delegate in whatever party is in the upper left, in this case scientist. So we're going to take a neutral delegate. He's the first one in the scientist party, so he becomes party leader, and we mark that as the dominant party. We slide you to the coming global, and then we flip the next card, which puts us at another delegate in the reds, and again they become party leader because they're the first one there. Now anytime a party has more delegates than the current dominant party, this token will switch. But for now, this is our setup. Every player has 7 of their own little delegates here in their own player color. They're going to take 2 of them and place them in the lobby over here right beneath the neutral reserve, and put the rest of them in the delegate reserve here. Now these policy tokens, these are what you're fighting for in this game. They all do something different. We'll go over them in a minute, but the first one, the one that you always start with, is the greens policy. And the greens policy, every time you put down a greens piece on the plant on the map, you gain 4 credits. So we're going to put that policy down as our starting policy. Now the rest of them do something different, so it's good to know what they do so you know what party to go for. The reds party, anytime you gain a terraforming rating, you have to pay 3 credits. And if you don't have 3 credits, then you can't increase your terraforming rating. The unity policy here, all titanium is worth an extra credit when using it to pay for cards. The Calvinist policy, once per player, you can pay 10 credits to increase power and heat by 1, heat production by 1. The Mars First policy, anytime you would place a tile on the planet itself, you gain a steel resource. And the Scientist party, once per player per generation, you can pay 10 credits to draw 3 cards. So that's not the only reason. We'll go over it. There's also a bonus whenever a party takes over and becomes chairman. There's a bonus that affects all players. So there's multiple things that you're fighting for it. Now some things to discuss about the board here that you can do while playing the game. There are some rule changes and some new concepts to think about. First, there's a new action. It's called lobbying. It's not a standard project, and you can do it any number of times in a generation. So you can move one of your delegates from the reserve here into a party. Each one, though, however, costs $5. Now you do have one in the lobby for free each round, so you can always place at least one delegate for free, but remember it is one of your 2 actions. Now the delegates are these, and you'll recognize this in the symbol. It's a little head and shoulders guy on the cards, And the party leader is always the first one in an empty party. That's the party leader. Now, if any player, including the neutral player, has more delegates in a party than the current party leader, you replace the party leader with the new guy's piece and they move back. So for example, I know that sounded confusing. Let's say green player has placed 2 delegates in reds. Since he now has more delegates here, the neutral is now just a delegate and green is now party leader. Now party leader is good because when they become chairman later, they can gain a terraforming rating point. Now the chairman is always from the ruler of the current party here, and whenever you place one of your colored delegates in the chairman spot, you gain a terraforming rating point then. Now the dominant party is the one with the most delegates. So in this example, leaving it like this, scientists started as the dominant party, but now that Reds has more delegates than scientists, Reds now become the dominant party. Now this is important because at the end of the round, whichever party's dominant is going to take over, and the policy is going to change, and there's a bonus to all players during the end round sequence down here. Now the ruling party always has this in effect during the action phase only, and becoming ruler is down here. It's going to be step 3, so we'll discuss this in just a minute. Now the lobbies up here, your delegates basically, they never leave this board at all. There's no reason for them to leave this board. Now influence is an important concept. So influence on cards, anytime, the symbols won't show it, but it will always say you can only have a maximum of 5. So gain 1 steel for each steel production, max of 5, and influence. So eventually this is going to be a current global event, and when it takes effect, you're going to do whatever this says down here. So gain 1 steel for each steel production, max of 5, and influence. So if you had 5 steel production, great, you just generated 5 steel. But it's also your influence, and you can have influence of anywhere from 0 to 3. You have an influence if you are chairman. You have an influence if you are party leader. And you have an influence if you've got at least 1 delegate in that party. But again, it's only in the dominant party. So in this example here, let's go and add some things around. Even though they both have the same number of delegates, Reds doesn't move because it already had it. This is the dominant party, so anytime that this would kick in, we'd be looking at the dominant party. So Red would get 1 influence because they have a guy here, but Green would get 2 because they have party leader and a guy here. If Scientists were the dominant party, Red would still get 1 influence, but Green wouldn't get any. So paying attention to that is part of how you can gain all these bonuses that will be coming up as you play. So let's go ahead and reset these guys. Now whenever a party takes over and becomes the policymakers up here, there is also a ruling bonus that kicks in that affects everybody at the time. So going through, we'll start with Mars first up here. Whenever they take over, all players receive a credit for each building tag that they have. And that affects everybody, not just whoever took over, not just the party leader. For Scientists, all players receive a credit for each science tag that they have. In Unity, all players receive a credit for each Venus, Earth, and Jovian tag that they have. For the Greens, all players receive a credit for each plant, microbe, and animal tag that they have. For the Reds, the player with the lowest terraforming rating gains 1 terraforming rating. Ties are friendly. Now this is the only different one here. if in a solo game you receive a terraforming rating if you have a 20 or below. That's the only one that's different for solo, and it does give us a little cheat sheet here that reminds us of that. And for the Calvinist, all players receive a credit for each heat production they have. So when a party takes over, the bonus here that's printed on the board takes effect for everybody. Now as you're playing, the board doesn't change much. The only thing you've really got to think about is that you do have a new action over here, keeping watch on the delegates and whatever policy is currently in effect. But you still have your 2 actions and then the next player and so forth. Now, at the end, during the solar phase, which happens after the production phase, there are now 4 steps to the solar phase. Step 1, check for end of game. Step 2 is if you have the Venus expansion. Step 3 is if you have the colonies expansion. Step 4 is the turmoil expansion. And luckily, it's all printed right on down here. So we'll go through step by step here. The first thing you do is you change your terraforming rating. All players lose 1, so everyone has to go down 1. Then you perform the current global event, checking for influence if needed. We do not have a current global event on the first round, so we're going to ignore that. We then check out our new government. Now the dominant party will become ruling, changing the policy tile. So for example here, let's say during the play, we had this going on. So scientists are still ruling. So we change the policy tile to the scientist policy. We perform the ruling bonus. The ruling bonus for this one is everyone gets a credit for each science tag that they had. So you'd all check your cards for any science tags, gain a credit for each one. The dominant party leader becomes chairman, earning a terraforming rating. So the old chairman goes back in the reserve, the new chairman takes over. Now because this one was neutral, obviously no one gets it, but let's say green was neutral because they had the most people there. Green would become the chairman and they would gain a point here, a terraforming rating. All other delegates are then placed back in their reserve. And we would restore the lobby, so everyone, if they didn't have one here, everyone would move a delegate over to the lobby. Now, this is going to change simply because there's no one here, so now Reds are now the dominant party to be watching for the next round. Then we go with a changing time, step 4. We move the coming global event to the current position, and we place a new neutral delegate in whichever party this one lists. In this case, it's Mars first. They're first, so that means they become party leader. We slide this one over to coming, and we flip for a new distant, and we place a neutral delegate in this case, the Greens party, which again, they're the first one, so they become party leader. Now this kind of lets you set up so that you know, all right, at the end of the next round, we're going to be gaining steel, and if I really, really want that, I'm going to make sure I have influence in whichever the ruling party is at the time. I then see that this one's coming up, gain a titanium for each Jovian tag and influence. All right, I really like that one also, so I'm going to try to set that up for next time. So that way you've got 3 cards going on here that you can kind of see what's going to happen. All right, so I kind of simulated around here and we've got everything set up. The scientists are still the ruling party, so they've got this action up here. The Mars first is going to be ruling because we are now back into our solar phase. That was a quick round, let me tell you. So again, all players lose 1 terraforming rating. We perform the current global event, taking influence into account. So our current global event, gain a steel for each steel production, maximum of 5, and influence. Now remember, you count influence based on whoever is dominant at the time. So in this case, green has 2 influence because they are party leader and they have at least 1 delegate here. Red has 1 influence. So green would gain 2 additional steel, red would gain 1 additional steel. We then switch over governments here. The dominant party becomes ruling, we change the policy. So we're going to remove the scientist policy and we're going to put the Mars first policy up. Now this is active for the next action phase. We perform the ruling bonus. The ruling bonus for Mars first, everyone gets a credit for each building token, each building tag they have on their cards. And again, that affects everybody, not just the ruling, whoever's chairman. We replace the chairman with whoever was party leader, and that player gains a point. We move everyone else back into their reserves, and this is now changed. Now, because we have the Calvinists and the Reds, each with 2 party members here, 2 delegates, we go clockwise, whichever would be next. In this case, it would be the Calvinists are next, so they are the new dominating party. Now we are going to move the coming global event here and just cover up the old one. We gain the Unity gains a neutral delegate. They're the first ones there, so they become party leader. We move this down to coming global event, and we flip a new one, and in the upper left corner is another Unity one, so Unity gains another neutral delegate right there. Then I forgot one thing back in new government, we restore the lobby, so everybody gets their 1 free delegate for the next round. And then that's it, and then we move on to the next round, and play continues like this until step 1 in the solar phase. You check endgame until that has triggered. It's the same as always. You've terraformed Mars in order to trigger the endgame. So that is Turmoil, and I hope you enjoyed the video.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, check out our podcast, and you can find us on all of our social media sites on gameandparty.com. See you on the next video.